Hey guys, welcome to the next Critique the Community. Today we are going to be critiquing modern photographs that supposedly would not have been possible without modern gear, modern technology, modern software. So this should be a very interesting one. If you would like to be a part of the next critique, it starts right now at fstoppers.com/contest, and the genre for June is outdoor photography. I know that is very broad, but that's what we want to do. Anything photographed outside. The first place winner of this new contest is going to get the Godox AD600 Pro 2, valued at $900. This is a battery-powered monolight, and just a few months ago, I did a very detailed review of the top battery-powered lights, and I believe this one was my favorite. So you're basically getting the best light currently on the market today.
Second place, you're gonna get some software from AC/DC. It's Photo Studio Ultimate 2025. I can't say recently I did a video because I think it's been about 6 months now, but I've used that software, and every time I go back to it, it makes me realize there's finally a viable option to leave the Adobe system if you want to. And so this software, you can license it or you can get a subscription. AC/DC is going to be giving the second place winner a full perpetual license, which is worth $150. So you'll be able to edit all your raw files. You can use it as Lightroom where you organize everything. And now, just like Lightroom, you can do a lot of the different AI masks and that sort of stuff.
And third place is going to get a free tutorial from fstoppers.com/store. And a little secret insider note, we're currently running a massive sale on, I believe, every single tutorial right now. So check it all out at fstoppers.com/store. Patrick, let's get into this critique. Now, I was the one that picked all of these images, and I specifically picked them for their use of modern cameras, lenses, features, software. And so, Patrick, I don't want you to read why I chose these. I don't want you to read their description. I want you to try to guess.
Well, this first image, I don't see anything that makes me feel like this needs modern technology. Maybe, if I look at the specular highlights in the background, maybe this is shot at like high noon and she's not in the shade and they had to like overpower the sun or something and they had to use HSS. But even then, I'm trying to think like what would make this image more difficult 10 or 20 years ago than it is today.
Well, this is probably my favorite image in terms of the genre and the theme of this month's critique. He said he shot this outside. The sun was very high and landing directly on the white dress. He had a strobe lighting the subject, but the dress was blown out.
Okay.
So what do you think he did to recover that dress?
Just pulled back the highlights in Lightroom?
No. He used generative fill in Photoshop to redraw it.
Oh, wow. It's funny because it's still not perfect. It's got some highlights that are blown out, it looks like, but that is not anything that, that's a really creative use of generative fill, or gen fill, as I like to call it.
Yeah, I like you always say, every time I open Photoshop, I use generative fill like 20 times, but I don't think it would have registered in my mind to use it in an area of blown out highlights to generate detail. That is such an interesting concept.
I have a video that's been on the back burner for a while that we filmed for Pro Photo. And we had this girl in a dress on this cliff. And the video is coming out soon. We're kind of waiting for everything to be approved. But she had this like shirt and skirt, and it showed her midriff, and it just didn't look like a fancy dress. I mean, it was very close to looking like a dress. So I just used generative fill to just seal the gap so her stomach didn't show, and it just looked like a full dress. And, I feel like I'm using gen fill for all kinds of little things that I never would have thought before, like earrings, removing or adding them, or fingernails, and they have weird nail polish, like you could just highlight them and kind of do whatever you want. I feel like it's the biggest game changer in photography in the last maybe ever. I don't know. Has there been a better, maybe Lightroom, when Lightroom first came out and you could
I think this is bigger.
Images?
Yeah, I mean that's helpful and beneficial to professionals, but in terms of actual game changing, completely changing photography, it's just, think about that. imagine if you were like an ultra high-end photographer, you know, you're getting paid the big bucks to shoot some commercial job for some fashion industry or whatever. A few years ago, they'd be like, we have to hire a clothing designer and remake that dress the way the photographer wants it. And now you just select generative fill and Photoshop does a better job than any human could do instantly. Do you want to rate it?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. I'm going 4 stars. What do you give it?
I'm a 3.5.
Okay.
So I think we average out. I don't have a problem with a 4 there.
Next up. So some of these are very, they're borderline in terms of like, really, you really needed the newest camera and the hottest lens and the best software to get this, you know? But this guy says that this image would not have been possible. He was photographing out of a helicopter, and he said it was incredibly smoky. And so he is convinced that a camera with less autofocus performance than his Nikon Z8 would not have been able to focus. And he also says that he was shooting at an incredibly high ISO that a lesser camera would not have been able to capture as cleanly. And then he says he used DxO Pure Raw, which used machine learning to recover every ounce of detail while eliminating high ISO noise, producing clean, detailed file that held up to printing and publishing. So it's kind of hard for me to say, I don't believe that when I don't know what the original raw file looked like, but it certainly doesn't, the way it's processed, it doesn't look that washed out and smoky to me.
Before you read all of that, my guess would have been that he flew a drone, a sacrificial drone, into the scene and was able to get the images recovered on the phone or the receiver, and the drone had to die to get this photo. But
well,
sounds like
stay
they landed
tuned.
the helicopter fine.
And we have more lava coming up, so stay tuned.
Okay. I remember once we were on the Big Island of Hawaii, filming with Mike Kelly, and I really wanted to do a helicopter tour and go over the the volcano there, and they were like, it's just too dangerous. And then you see pictures like this, and I'm like, this looks way worse than whatever the horrible conditions were when we were there. I don't even think the volcano was necessarily erupting, but they were like the smoke and the sulfur gas or whatever it is could not only potentially take the plane down with the engines, but it could also knock out the passengers to where we couldn't breathe. So it's always wild to think that these type of shots aren't taken from an unmanned drone.
And I think, I'm trying to remember, we were there and we went into this fine art gallery that was in Hawaii, and it was either it had just happened or after we left, that photographer died on a tour photographing lava. I think they said it started raining, and the rain hitting the lava caused the toxic steam, and everybody just passed out and died right there on the rocks. It's so wild.
I want to say, is it Mount Kilauea was the one where the lava comes up through like the neighborhood streets, and I believe would eventually destroy the fancy home that we were shooting because it was built on a lava field. And the architect was like, this house is, I guess they do different ratings, like 1 through 5. And this house was built on a level 5 field, where that means in the next 100 years, it is guaranteed to be covered with lava and the whole home will be lost. And I'm thinking, who has enough money to invest in something that 100% will be gone, if not in their lifetime, in their kids' lifetime? It's kind of wild.
Yeah, and I assume that's uninsurable. I would hope so.
Yeah, you would think. All right, you ready to rate this?
I'm ready.
All right.
3, 2, 1. I'm in between a 3 and a 4.
No, you're going nice today. I mean, it's very well processed. If there's any issues with the raw file, I sure wouldn't have known. I love the color grade. I love, the blown out highlights. I feel like you kind of need that in Fire. I feel like the exposure and everything's great. The framing, the composition, I mean, you're in an aerial shot, so I feel like there's not a whole lot you can do except kind of shooting down in this 3/4 sort of perspective. But It's great. I don't know that it's great to have in your feed if you're a landscape photographer or you're a photojournalist. I think it's definitely going to capture, people's attention, but is it the most mind-blowing image that I want to print up and hang on my wall? I don't know. It's a cool experience for sure.
All right, this shot was the highest rated shot of the entire critique, and I was quite shocked by that. Can you guess why?
I mean, this is, I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to stake it in the ground that this is all or partially AI. I mean, I'm going to say her face is AI to the point where that's the most important part of the image, right? This can't possibly be a real photograph.
You are correct.
I mean, look, I'm zooming into the brick on the far left, and it's like the mortar that's coming out of the brick. It's like it just ends right above the bag. Not that AI would necessarily mess that up. In some ways, like that might be more of a human error. You could probably make the argument that that's a bad clone job from the photographer, but there's definitely some funny business going on over there.
So this was taken by Kevin O'Connell. He says that he photographed a real person and then he uploaded it to Midjourney, and then he got Midjourney to change the theme and make it like a Depression's era image in black and white. And I wish that he had uploaded the original image. It would have just been interesting to see that.
Yeah.
I don't believe he's showed that.
There is a photographer who went really viral for taking photos of dogs, studio lit dogs with the blown background and everything, and then he used CGI to make these like racer helmets, and he put the helmets in Photoshop on the dogs, so the dogs weren't photographed with the helmets, but it created this like crazy looking photo series that he is well known for. And so I took his images with his permission, threw them into Midjourney, and just said, take this image and make different dogs with different helmets. And it produced images that if you mix them in with his, no one would know that those images weren't taken by him. And so it just brings up this big question of, well, where's the copyright there? The images were based on his. I don't know how you would ever be able to prove that in a court of law. But even if you could, the copyright says that these are such big derivatives that they aren't the same pixels and images at all. It's a new thing. And furthermore, it's not created by a human, because AI, even if I'm inputting this stuff and helping to design it, the Copyright Office says that, a machine ultimately made it. So there's two big ways to protect it, but it sure feels like an infringement from the perspective of the original photographer. And so, I don't know. I feel like this is probably going to be the biggest challenge that photographers and creatives have, is that we can just take anyone's images, tweak them into something new that serves our purpose, and, it's basically free. Who's going to be able to challenge it?
I know, it's so scary and depressing. I just feel like I'm watching photography kind of die before my eyes. And even things like generative fill and Photoshop, it just makes photography so easy now that where's the value? And then, I don't know if you've seen in the last few weeks, have you seen the AI video stuff that's been coming out? Like the thing that Google made where you can now have characters actually speaking with voices, with perfectly synced lips. And soon, so like I've had this dream for my whole life. I want to write a movie. And I feel like I've got this concept in my mind and I want to start writing it. And I'm just thinking to myself, is this even, it's a long shot that the movie would ever get made or blah, 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 blah. But there's still a chance, right? But if by the time I'm done writing this, you can just ask ChatGPT, write a sci-fi film about this, and then now drop it into Google, and Google, make these 30 scenes. Can you just make a movie that looks freaking amazing for free on a computer?
Well, the question that I have is, if it sounds like that would be a great way to storyboard or cheaply do like the first version of a movie. But my question is would Hollywood or any backers, would they ever say, you made this thing with AI and it's been done, we want to invest in that and make it better with real actors? I mean, is that a new tool that screenwriters have to get their movie, into a production, because usually what you do is you pay to make the 2-minute movie trailer, and you don't even have the whole thing filmed. You just try to make it to where somebody says, that looks like an awesome story, and then you invest maybe in the 20-minute version. You know this more than I do. You would then produce the 1-hour version, and you try to like slowly inch your way up into either making that a full production, or you make that its own 20-minute short, and then you write the next one, and you write the next one. But there's this process to getting from not making a movie ever to then making something that, premieres, in a festival. And so I wonder if creating movies with AI is a good tool that would help build up the hype for that, or if it completely diminishes your idea and people watch it and say, oh, that was cool, but like, I don't want to touch that now because, it was done first with AI.
I think at the moment it's an incredible tool, but once it becomes cohesive enough to actually create finished products, like a movie would be very difficult, right? You've got to keep like the exact same actors with the exact same voices over the course of an hour and a half. That's difficult. But imagine TV commercials. I mean, I literally think it is now good enough that you could make TV commercials with it and nobody would ever know that it's not real. And I don't even know that it requires like any post-production you just say there's a little error, you just say remix and in 5 minutes it'll come up with a new one.
Yeah, did you see Melania Trump released her audiobook that's completely read by her in an AI voice?
No, so there you go.
And I'm going to be honest with our audience. I have now subscribed for $10 a month to a service. I think it's called 11 Hats or 11, I got to remember it. It's cloned my voice. So sometimes when I'm editing a video and it's like I said something wrong or I need to add a sentence in there, instead of like trying to go back into my studio and mic up and hit record and then take the memory card and download the file, I just type the phrase that I need and I run it through maybe 5 times and it'll get a weird word with, it'll end on a high note. And you're like, I don't want that, I want high note. And so then you just chop up it. I don't know. It's just way easier to like fix little tweaks when you need to.
And you've trained it on audio that you've recorded in your studio so that it's consistent?
Yeah, like maybe this podcast. I mean, obviously I have you and me both in it, but like a normal video where I have hit record and I've spent an hour explaining the video, and then I'm going to go chop it into a 10-minute video that's released on YouTube. But that hour take that I had, just upload that to the server. And then an hour later, it's analyzed my voice, and now it says every word possible pretty freaking well. To the point where, and because it's recorded in the studio where I normally record, the reverb and everything sounds almost identical. Now, if I go out on location, I have the tendency to start yelling, and I'm yelling at you across the way and filming, and my voice sounds totally different. You have no ambient reverb, so it struggles in those situations. But if you know that you're going to be in a few different places, you could have Patrick's AI voice in his garage studio, in the F-Stopper studio, on an airplane, like, wherever it would be, and you just use that version, and it's, especially with a little bit of noise underneath or like a little audio track, it's 90% there. It's to the point where I use it all the time. Like, I don't even hesitate.
It's so creepy, dude. It's so creepy. And I still feel like most people...
Face, that's going to be a whole different thing.
Well, we're already there. You did that. You used some software. Was it Kling or what software was like, you were just typing stuff and you were saying it?
It's Hey Gen. The problem right now, until you can figure out how to do this through a program like Stable Diffusion with, I think it's WAN, W-A-N is the new video one. Until you can do it locally, you're having to do this on somebody else's server, and they're going to charge you a lot. It might be, $5 a short little generation. But if you need to make a 10-minute video, that $5 is going to add up easily to $500. And so suddenly now the budget to make a video with AI is really, really high. So if you could do it locally, it could potentially be free. But it takes a lot of work to get all this to work on your local machine, at least for somebody like me who's not very computer literate at this stage.
And at the moment, but who knows, in 6 months from now, they might have figured it out and it costs 10 cents, like, ChatGPT does. They just give it to you.
Going back to this image, my question is, though, I immediately can spot this and be like, that is AI. And for me, I lose interest because it's AI. I don't totally know why. Maybe because I know. If I 100% believe that this was real, if all of the previous images we just looked at were AI, but they fooled me, it does something weird to my psyche to where I value it if it's real, but I value it less if it's AI. For me, this image, like her expression, it feels a little off. It feels a little, synthetic. Everything about this feels synthetic to me. And so it's just shocking that maybe people rated this the highest because it used technology in the best way and they were rating the images based on the theme of the contest. But in terms of an image that I find value in and want to stare at and want to ask her, her story, I just feel like it's this blank shell of it's like Westworld, it's like trying to fall in love with the character that, repeats the same thing every day. It's not that exciting to me.
I agree. This one looks like Midjourney to me, but for anyone who has not used Midjourney, you can now, I don't know if you know this, you can now just go to their web browser and use it. It used to be somewhat of a complicated...
You Discord?
Yeah, you don't have to use Discord anymore. So everybody, please just Google Midjourney. I think you could probably make a few for free each month if you want to. But you can absolutely get photorealistic images. I would say this is not one. This has that glowy AI look to it, but you can absolutely get photorealistic images for free.
Do we even know how to rate this?
How do you rate AI art? 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It's fine. It's good. It looks a little AI-y to me, and so therefore, like you said, I lose interest. All right, next.
It's like this bird's just incapable of flying at this very moment. It's like the perfect snapshot of like not in a flying position and just hovering.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this is like the pre-capture thing where you just hit go and then the bird shows up and it's in focus and then you let go of the shutter. And also high frame rate, like maybe this is shot at like 20 frames a second or something.
Yeah. So he did not specifically mention pre-capture, but this was shot on the Sony A1. I don't know if the A1, I can't keep track of the Sony cameras and what they have. But it's got the insane animal/bird eye detect autofocus. Yep. It's got ridiculous tracking. He said he shot it at 30 frames per second with ultra fast memory cards. He had high resolution, which allowed him to crop into the image. He had high ISO performance, even though he only shot at ISO 500. And then modern software to be able to clean up the image, crop in, edit it, make it look the way it does. So I can attest, as somebody who just got into shooting birds and stuff, the new gear, it's like cheating. It's so freaking amazing. The autofocus is so accurate, so fast. And then, 30 frames per second, or I was shooting on the A9 III, I think. I think I could shoot 120 frames per second in RAW if I wanted to. It's just absurd. 3, 2, 1.
People be upset by how boring my critique is today,
3 stars. I think it's all right.
Yeah.
There was actually other bird photos that were uploaded, but I didn't really like their description and their justification for it, being modern gear. All right, next up. It's a good time
to remind everybody how important the text is that you put on these photos, because it does determine when things get picked and not picked.
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to be able to talk about the images, how they were taken, what was difficult, your thought process, more than just, looking at an image and trying to guess.
Before we go to the next image, maybe we should remind people what's at stake for this contest. If you didn't watch the last video, we revealed that we have a ton of bags from Polar Pro. It's their new Roadrunner series. I think we have, is it 4 or 5? 5 bags. We might have the entire collection. It's a lot of bags. I think Lee's grabbing them right now. The first place winner of this critique, you are going to get mailed so many bags that you will have a bag for every type of photography that you do. So if you just want to take something on a road trip, you'll have a small bag for that. If you need something for the airplane that fits in your overhead compartment that's got your best camera and lens setup, you're going to have a bag for that. So we will announce the winners here at the end, but that's what's at stake with this one.
Yeah. Got a lot of bags. I need them out of my office. Let's see. Next up.
Man, this looks like a familiar location. Is this like North Carolina or Florida,
You are
Georgia?
right. Cape Hatteras Lighthouse in North Carolina.
I knew I've seen this lighthouse before. When I was a kid, like, a lot of people get obsessed with trains and stuff. I wouldn't say I was like obsessed with lighthouses, but I remember doing trips with my parents, and you'd always go into some gallery and there's always a lighthouse image. I always remember being really drawn to lighthouses for some reason. And I remember this one. This one looks really unique.
Do you know how this type of photography or editing is done?
I feel like I've done this kind of just messing around. I think it's just a long exposure, and then you put it into an editing software and change it to black and white, and then you move the red, green, and yellow sliders around, the blue sliders, and maybe you bring the blue to where it goes black. Something generally like that. I mean, I guess it could be infrared. Sometimes that does some weird stuff too, but I don't know that this is infrared photography.
So I think there's an element of truth to what you're saying, but this is so heavily edited that
like a red filter or something.
It's basically just a complete background replacement. So what they do is
what do you mean? You mean that they've selected the lighthouse and changed the background?
Correct.
Or they've just messed with the sliders enough to give the final image this crazy look?
They're cutting out the lighthouse,
Really?
making it its own layer, and then creating like a black gradient in the background, and that becomes the background.
Is that what he said?
That is what he says, and he actually linked to a video of somebody doing it, and I watched the entire video to confirm that I understood what was going on, and it's just that simple. It's literally you're just cutting the subject out and replacing the background with something very, very dark.
So this long exposure may not, I mean, is that a real sky?
Nah, it's bullshit, yeah.
Well, that definitely like cheapens it to some degree. I mean, I don't know that these type of images that are very popular within the black and white landscape genre, I don't know that I've ever truly valued them for it being real or not, just because it looks so strange to begin with. But now that I know that it's been cut out, maybe it does. It does now, but should it? That's always the question. Should I care?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember years ago, there was a photographer in Charleston. I don't remember his name, but we went to some photography meetup or something, and he was showing me his work, and it was all of this. And I was like, how are you doing that? Are you replacing the background? And he was like, oh, I've got some techniques or whatever, but it's just bullshit.
He would avoid telling you the truth?
Yeah, he didn't want to tell me, but he's literally just swapping the background with a dark sky.
I mean, this should be easier to do than ever. Now that you could just tell Lightroom to select your subject and then change to the background and darken. Like, I think if you got a long exposure, you could do this pretty easily. A little like selective burn on the bottom of the lighthouse there. It's got the vignette look, where it's like dodged and burned.
3, 2, 1. I'm in between a 3 and a 4.
Yeah, I think it's a solid image. It's cool.
All right. Next up, as somebody who recently shot birds dive bombing the water, birds flying over the water directly at my camera, and then fish jumping out of the water as birds dive bomb them, once again, I can attest to just the magic of these new cameras. And again, something that would be like so much preparation and luck in the past, where you're like pre-focusing and just hoping that fish jump right there, or you're pre-focusing and hoping that a bird lands right there. The autofocus is now so fast and perfect that if penguins are swimming and jumping towards you, you have 100% confidence that you're gonna get almost every single shot in focus. And so that is what Dylan has said he did here as well, shooting with the Sony Alpha 1 Mark II with a 300mm f2.8 lens. And he says he used pre-capture, ultra-fast autofocus, high frame rates, and he was easily able to capture it. And I get it. And unless you guys have used this new gear, and in many cases, I use like the newest, hottest gear all the time, but I have no need to photograph subjects that are moving this quickly, right? So every camera's autofocus seems perfect to me until you try to shoot subjects running or flying at you. Then you realize like, oh, no old camera can do that. Only the new ones can. And
you have to push it to the fringe edge of where that technology can help you, and you're just not doing that on a normal basis.
Yeah, I don't think the average photographer does that. Obviously, if you shoot landscape, you don't really need autofocus. But even if you're shooting portraits, most people are just standing or sitting there. They're not running at you. So I don't think the average photographer really knows how good autofocus has gotten.
So looking at this image, this just reminded me of probably like the meme that most photographers hate the most. If you're on a safari or you're on a cruise ship or wherever, and you get this photo and there's a bunch of other people trying to photograph it, and then you show them the back of the camera, the person next to you, and they have some horrible shot of this, right? It's not in focus, it's wide, they're tiny, and then you show them this. What is the first thing that they're gonna say to you?
You have a really nice camera.
You must have a great camera. You know, like photographers hate that because they always want to think that it's not the camera, it's me, the artist. But there's some truth to that. I don't diminish that this person is a great photographer. But we're starting to get in this picture that area where maybe it is the camera. You know, like if I handed you the Nikon D850 with the mirror and the 4 frames a second, you wouldn't have gotten this shot, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe
pre-capture.
this might be the best example for me of this critique where the camera truly does matter.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing that really matters too is the type of bird that you're shooting. Can we agree that the general public and people like me who aren't into bird photography, we love some penguins, and seeing images like this with the guy behind them just this is adorable. We love this. But then you go to a picture of just a bird who looks like he's not flying, like, I don't care about that bird, you know? It's just not as memorable of an animal.
Yes, at the same time, I feel like penguins are one of the cutest animals on the planet, and these do not look that cute.
No, I think they do. I mean, they're not known to be big flyers. I don't even know if they're flying. They might be jumping, right?
They cannot fly, so aren't they like...
And the guy on the right's hilarious. He's like a B-1 bomber or something with short little wings, and I don't know. I think it's a cute picture. Like, I don't know. I really like this. What I'm doing on my screen is I'm just cropping it a little tighter and kind of getting rid of some of the left-hand side of the frame. I don't know that you really need that. I think it's a little bit stronger of an image. I don't know if you can see what I've done here. I'm ready to rate it.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Am I going?
3 and a 4.
Really? You just talked it up, and you're only giving it 3?
Well, I mean, I think if I crop this, and that's the liberty I'm not sure if I should do in the rating, but I'd give that a 4. That's a 4 to me, but I had to crop it to get there. So does that qualify as?
Who knows? It's not like we make up these rules as we go.
No, we would never do that.
All right, next up. So
Here's a great example. Like it's just a bird I don't care about. It's a beautiful picture, but like this bird doesn't have the same like emotional connection that a penguin has.
I see. Yeah, I mean, maybe I agree with you, but I do feel like this is a prettier image than the last.
This is the cheetah bird, right?
He calls it a northern flicker.
Oh, that one.
So this was an interesting one, and I was debating like, should I even allow this in the critique? Because he says, although pre-capture was available on my Nikon Z9, I found good results by pre-focusing on the nest hole with my finger on a remote cable release and my eye on the flicker's approach. So basically he's saying, although I had modern features, I did not need them, nor did I use them.
I mean, that's the sign of a true photographer, you know? You figured out the best rate of success, and you went with that, you know?
My question is, why was a remote cable release necessary?
You know, I've asked that question a lot, even with, you know, we work with Alaya and other landscape photographers, and they're so meticulous about using that cable release. And sometimes you'll be doing like I don't know, a half a second exposure or a 3-second exposure, a 30-second exposure. And I've always wondered, like, shaking the camera for that mirror, back when we had mirrors, that is such an insignificant motion. Maybe it's vibrating the camera for a longer time or something, but it always felt to me that that is such a small fraction of the full exposure.
Well, hold on, you're talking about two different things now. So the flapping of the mirror, that's something else. The cable release would stop you from camera shake that you create by pressing the shutter button.
Yeah. Why do you think he's using a cable release on this? Not for the same thing?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I'm looking at this bird. This image was probably taken at 1/2000th of a second. So
the only reason I could think was like you've placed this camera above your head, tilted up. Like it's in a hard to get spot, and maybe or it's awkward to like kneel down. And so you have the cable release just so that you can either actually trigger the camera. But if it's for shake, it's the same sort of thing. If this was taken, does he tell you what shutter speed this is taken at?
He does not.
Even, if it's like if the shutter is really long for landscapes, does the mirror affect the sharpness of that? Or if the shutter is incredibly fast, like the new Sony shoots at like 80,000th of a second, is it and that camera doesn't have a mirror, but if it did have some shake, maybe from you hitting the button, on the opposite, on the far extremes of the exposure with your shutter speed, is that become negligible, or does it really affect how sharp the image will be?
I can't imagine. With an image like this, I can't imagine it would make any difference, but I like your theory that the camera was in a hard to reach place and he used a remote trigger to make it more comfortable. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. 3, 2, 1. 3 stars.
I'm looking for something, like as we go deeper into this, I keep thinking, some of those images should have been 4s that I gave 3s. I really like this. I love the contrast. I love that yellow on that green. I feel like if you were just going through a portfolio, this is just a solid shot with, great wingspan. The bird's approaching. I wish you could see something in that little hole that he's about to go after. The bird's actually really pretty. Like this is one of those birds that's got a lot of color and just unique features on it that, it's a little bit more than the previous bird that we saw, but it's just hard for me, I think even in our animal critiques, wildlife critiques, what pushes an animal photo to go into that 4 and 5 category? For me, it's kind of hard to distinguish that.
Next up, we've attempted underwater photography, and most of our attempts have been failures. I know how difficult it can be. And this one was interesting to me. This was taken by Hanny Honeymoon. I assume Hanny's a female.
What is this shot in? This isn't just underwater, right?
Why do you say that?
This looks like she's in a tank, like in a 2 or 3 foot tank that's very shallow.
Yeah, it does kind of look like that.
Is it not? What does she tell us?
It does say, I really love shooting underwater images and make use of big water tanks.
Now, Hanny Honeymoon has made our critique before, because I can't forget a name like that. I think she was in the last one or the one before that.
Yes, she has an incredible portfolio.
Did she have a portrait of a woman or something that was like cosplay or something?
Yeah, that's her. I mean, you're looking at this image right now, right?
Well, yes, but I'm just now on camera putting 2 and 2 together.
So, if you're shooting in a water tank and you are dry outside, that is infinitely easier than putting your camera into an underwater housing and then you going down, you having oxygen down there, you trying to find a buoyancy level. It's so hard when you're floating around and the subject's floating around. Now, what Hanny says is that what made this so difficult in the past was like using single point autofocus and your subject's moving around and maybe you're moving around if you're in the water too, and you trying to find that person's eye as they move and focus as you're, bobbing and weaving closer and further away from them. It's incredibly difficult just to get them in focus. And she says that eye autofocus has been an absolute game changer. Basically, you just point and shoot, and the camera will get it in focus every single time. So that stood out to me as like, oh yeah, I could see that. For underwater photography, keeping things in focus was so hard in the past, and maybe with modern gear, that's not the case anymore.
Was one of the options fish? Did they have the fish autofocus yet?
You know, I don't remember if I've seen a camera with fish autofocus. I don't know.
I've always said, I know you kind of just said this already, but I think underwater photography is the hardest genre of photography I've ever attempted. Because like you said, you're working with buoyancy, and a lot of times we're scuba diving, so we have oxygen. But a lot of these images are taken in really shallow water because the filtration of the spectrum hasn't happened, so you still get really good color in 2 or 3 feet of water, whereas if you go scuba diving, you've lost all the color in general. But even with with water, with air, respirator, is that what it's called?
I think so.
You're being pushed by the current. You're trying to deal with the camera. Sometimes you have the strobe, and then you have an animal that thinks you're a predator that's trying to get away from you, and then you're kicking up dust and silt, and it's the hardest thing to get really great underwater images. And so I don't know. This is different because, like you said, it looks like she's shooting through. I mean, she's got to be shooting through something because you don't naturally get that water line on the top the way that it is without like a barrier and like a dome in front of your camera. Now you could still be underwater with a dome, but
she would have to be out. I don't think that's a dome. I think it's a water tank, like you said.
And then there's also like the ground. I can't really tell what it is, but it almost looks like it's fabric or nothing. It's staged with these leaves and stuff, but there is something behind her that looks kind of like something you'd see underwater with coral and whatnot. But you ready to rate the image?
I am.
I mean, everybody knows that I don't like this genre of photography. Oh, I'm sorry.
3, 2, 1.
I mean, maybe it's
no, you can't give it 2. Come on.
Man, I don't know. It's so fair. It's like I will admit, I have a negative bias towards this genre. Like, this is the deviant art sort of stuff, and I've just never been into that,
You are a hater.
I am a hater, and I'm sorry. Like, don't take my opinion for anything more than my opinion. But like the rouge, makeup and the horn, like all of it, it's so. This is the type of photography that I just feel like if AI replaced it, I don't know that I would feel
the
bad.
world would be a better place.
I'm not saying a better place, but I wouldn't notice one way or another. But that's just Patrick Hall's dumb take on this type of photography.
All right, next up.
Oh, boy, we got back into the lava fields.
We got another lava shot. So, based on my previous comments, do you want to guess how this was taken?
Which comment? You didn't pick the same photographer, so I hope that they haven't used all of the software and crazy tricks to pull all of the detail back, but maybe they did. Lava is so tricky because the nature of it is so extreme that I think a lot of people are biased in the opposite way. Like, I love lava photos because they're just so crazy and over the top, and it's one of these like natural phenomenons that just seems so wild. I don't love. I'm not as impressed with like the leading lines and the shape, and it just seems a little. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad.
It almost looks like the horizon's not straight.
I've just seen such crazier looking lava images, but.
So this was taken with a DJI Mavic 2 Pro drone hovering 10 meters above active lava. And he says he was so close to the lava that it melted his drone, permanently damaging the proximity sensor and warping the plastic. Yet it still flies and now carries the battle-scarred patina that tells the story of how the image came to be. Thought that was well written.
That's cool. So that's now the battle drone. Anytime you need to go back out and shoot this kind of stuff, or you need a crash drone, you already have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if you could put like aluminum foil on the bottom of it, and it would like be a heat shield, you know, like a space shuttle heat shield.
Did they just lose? What happened with the last space shuttle? It blew up in outer space or something?
Yeah, another one blew up. They are struggling.
I never know if they're like doing something wrong. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose that, but it's also like they're pushing it as far as they can. And you know, sometimes what's the quote, like, you know, something about your biggest successes are marked by your failures or something. You know, to only have shuttles that go into orbit and come back safely. I don't know. Maybe it's good that there's somebody out there blowing stuff up, but you also have to think all that debris is landing on somebody somewhere. Hopefully it's ocean.
Yeah, I think they have like a flight plan that is prepared for, what do they call it? They don't call it an explosion. It's like a non-planned deconstruction or something like that.
Yeah, of course.
Did
they say where this is? I mean, is this Iceland or Hawaii or where is this shot?
We need to rate this.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Man, I haven't given anything but a 3, but I got to stay true to myself. It's a solid image. It's not blowing me away. I think I definitely like the other one better. I think I just like that perspective. But again, it's one of those things where if you experience this, and I never have, if you experience this, it's going to make a lasting, you know, impression. You have an awesome photo. You still have the drone to show, you know, to show that you came out with the image and it survived. Like, it's a really, really cool story. So here's another little question for everybody out there. You have recently been killing it with these long form reviews of modern cameras. You just reviewed the Nikon Z8, which by no means is a new camera. It came out like 2 years ago. It's not technically Nikon's flagship, but it's probably their second best camera. It's their flagship that doesn't have the grip built in, right? And you also just reviewed the brand new Panasonic S2. What is that camera called? I just shared 1 or 2 of these videos with some of our other photo friends, you know, professional photographers who are making a very good living at photography. And on more than one occasion, they said, it's shocking that people even care about current camera reviews, because these cameras can do anything you ever need them to do. And it's more about creating art and doing the business side of photography, where you're out getting clients and you're locking down jobs and you're actually like doing it. The cameras do not matter at all. And I was like, I feel that way. But it seems like the newest features are all kind of in either the video mode, which a lot of these friends of ours don't do a lot of video, so they don't care about video at all, or it's in the high burst rates and the pre-focus and capture and all this stuff that kind of falls in a really niche type of photography. So do you feel like, I feel like this is the case with the iPhone. Like, I do not care about new iPhones whatsoever. My battery's about to die, so guess what? I need a new iPhone. Do you feel like cameras have gotten to that stage where there's nothing? I mean, I've seen people complain that a camera's only 36 megapixels, and I'm like, that was a holy grail like 10 years ago. If you could have 36, that was more than you ever needed. Now we have 100 megapixels. We have every lens you could possibly need.
And now with AI upscaling, you can make a 10 megapixel image 100 megapixels instantly.
I would argue the one big feature that I can't believe isn't happening yet in the cameras is some sort of, what does Apple call it, where they add the filter they process the image, like a more dynamic processing on your JPEG straight out of the camera. I'm shocked that all DSLRs don't, or mirrorless cameras, I'm shocked that all digital cameras don't have an option to turn that on, where it could just do some crazy production that gives you a more finalized look that's your look, as opposed to just burning a simple JPEG with, a little shadow highlight.
I think that's going to be what they have to do, because at a certain point, you have more than enough resolution. We are now to the point where autofocus is flawless. It is beyond what any human could do. ISO performance, that could always be better, but I feel like we've kind of started to hit a brick wall with that, where it used to get real, 15 years ago, each new camera would give you an extra 1.5 stops of ISO performance. Now, a camera comes out 5 years later and it'll have the same ISO performance.
But here's the thing with ISO, that really, I feel like, only applies to people shooting with natural light. Every photographer that I know, commercial photographer, real estate photographer, conceptual photographer, fine art photographer, studio photographer, every photographer that I know that's making big money, they are all 100% in control of the image that they're not about to capture, but they're about to create. And I feel like for all of them, they're just like, I'll shoot at ISO 100, 400 max. I'm going to bring in my lighting. I'm going to take multiple frames. I'm going to layer it on top. I'm going to post. Like, they're going to do so much work for their client or for the end use that they don't care about ISO 64,000 or, whatever you can do. Maybe there's like landscape photographers or nature photographers that want to shoot under the moonlight. That's just such a small number of photographers. And all the people that I know that are, commercial, professional photographers working day in and day out. Peter Hurley, he doesn't care about slightly lower noise. Like, that's not even on his radar. He didn't care.
It's true. Yeah, it is.
So I don't know. It's interesting to see how many views these videos get and all the comments and all the nitpicking and that camera sucks and I can't believe you dissed on this one and not that one. And then meanwhile, all the people that I know that are like actually doing this for a living, they probably couldn't even tell you that these cameras were. I can't even tell you. Like, I just called it the S1 II. I don't even know if that's the name of it.
I think you're right. I totally forgot the name of it, but yes, the Panasonic Lumix S1 II.
Okay. Oh, thank goodness wasn't too far off. But if you told me what I didn't know that Nikon had a Z. Is it just the Z8 or is it the Z8 II? Maybe it's the Z6.
I think it's just the Z8. I don't think they have the new one yet.
I can't keep up with Nikon, and we used to be huge Nikon shooters. It's just. I never sit around and just say, man, I wish the day would come where this camera could do something that it can't do. I'm more like kicking myself for not taking the ideas in my head and just going out and executing them,
That is the bottom line with all of this, is that we spend so much time sitting around reading about gear that we don't have and not actually using what we do have, which is plenty good enough. But we have 2 more images to go through.
Okay,
so let's keep going. We've got another shot from Iceland. We photographed this exact spot with Elia. You can check it out at fstoppers.com/store. Photographing the World 1. We went to this location.
What is the name of this mountain range? I always want to call it like Vandersloot, but I think that's the killer from Aruba who killed the girl from Alabama. But it's something like that, right? Like the Vandersloot Mountain or something?
The photographer says, to get a picture like this, I would have to be one of the luckiest human beings alive, or I could use modern technology to pretend I was the luckiest human being alive. Guess which one I am.
He used modern technology because he submitted into this contest.
That's true. So then the question becomes, what of this is actually real?
It's all real. I think my first intro to photography was actually trying to capture lightning. I don't know why. I was living in Nashville and I had like a point and shoot like camera and it could do 30-second exposures or something. And I remember like one of the first images I ever took that really got me into this was something like this. Basically, you just sit there and you just keep clicking away every 30 seconds and you might be out there for an hour. But if you have a good thunderstorm out in the distance, every couple images you're going to get one bolt of lightning. And then you just go into Photoshop, if you put it on a tripod, and you just layer them all on top of each other. And all of a sudden you get, or if you're in a dark enough place, like if you were in New Zealand or something where there's no moonlight, maybe you could do, a 5-minute exposure. And if your scene doesn't get blown out, you could actually capture for real all the lightning strikes. They used to make a tool in the 2000s where you could plug it into your camera release. And it was basically like an optical cell that would trigger the camera the second that it would see a large flash of light, kind of like you would have on a strobe, and you could capture lightning. I never went around and actually bought that. But so long story short, I'm going to say this is like 3 frames that he captured and stacked them on top of each other. Everything is technically real, but it didn't happen all at the same time.
So that is not how I interpreted his description at all, which is very interesting. I got the vibe, and he doesn't explain, but I got the vibe that the entire top half of this shot is fake. And he just replaced the sky with ridiculous lightning, but it was not like that at all.
So I think there's software that I use for creating assets. You know, there's AI software, but then there's software that helps you, you know, give a file a certain look. There's software to help retouch skin. There's Boris FX. They have software that can make bubbles and make all these crazy things. They can make lightning bolts, and you can get into the nitty gritty. It's almost like some Stable Diffusion and Comfy, where you can like draw these lines and tweak exactly how many branches of lightning come off. It's incredible for making stuff like this. It's still shocking to think that, is that what they did? Was they just use software to completely make lightning strikes? And then I guess the bigger question for you, I mean, I just told everybody I loved taking this kind of stuff when I first got into it. Do lightning photos to you like cheapen the image because it feels like some kind of gimmick? Or does it seem like a rare event and it enhances the location?
I think it just has to do with if it's tastefully done and how good it looks. I feel like these lightning bolts look fantastic. But based on his description, I just keep thinking this is totally fake. This is just like sky replacement in Photoshop. And I don't know. The fact that the lightning is so symmetrical, we got 4 bolts, it seems too good to be true.
That's why I tend to believe that these all happened at different times as the storm moves and hits different, you know, and you just layer them on.
Don't you think he would have said that? Wouldn't he have bragged about that in the description if that was true?
I mean, I don't know. It seems wild to me to take a black and white photo like this and then say, you know what, let me add lightning to it. Like, that's not the first thing that I would go towards, but I guess there's somebody out there doing that. So
all right,
I would love to know. Leave a comment in the video below. Like, I'd love to know.
Let us know. I do want to know what is real and what is not. All right, you ready to rate?
Yes.
3, 2, 1. Okay, another 3. Shocker.
I know. I'm not trying to just ride the middle. Like, I really want. I will say this. I haven't looked at these images in a while, but when we first announced this contest, the first 2 weeks, the submissions were very low. And so I don't know if that's because people aren't interested in this theme or people don't have that many modern cameras to qualify for this theme, but I was kind of left thinking, oh no, have we made a mistake making a topic a little too narrow and difficult to submit to? And maybe that is why I'm not finding images in this critique that you picked out to like blow my mind, but I could be wrong.
Yes, we got very few submissions for this critique. I believe the reason is, 1, a lot of our readers don't have the newest, most expensive modern equipment, but 2, even if you do, I think it's very hard to justify, like, I could not have taken this image with last generation's camera because I don't think new cameras are that much better. Their autofocus is that much better, but for most subjects, you would never know.
I could see people going the other way, though, too, like overemphasizing how some feature that's been in a camera for decades, like I had to have fast shutters, or I don't know. Like, I would find that people might try anything they can to get their image submitted and kind of bend the rules to say that, you know, it was a little bit more, technology was needed a little bit more than it truly was.
Final image. Can you guess how this was taken?
Okay. Give me a hint. Is this a single exposure? Well, no, it can't be that. I was thinking somehow they just like covered the lens to get, but then the moon would be moving. So it's got to be a single shot of the moon with, well, now I'm thinking if you did, I don't know, let's call this 12 exposures for the satellite. The moon would be moving ever so slightly to where, like, are you just circling the satellite and just plopping it down in a line? Or do they have a tracker? I'm going to hope they have some kind of tracking system because that would be modern technology. And the camera is following everything at the same pace to where it all lines up perfectly. Is that a thing?
So this is an image of the International Space Station. This was taken at 1600 millimeters. He says it was taken with a 800 millimeter lens, f6.3 with a 2x teleconverter on the Nikon Z9. He says the image is a stack of 20 images for noise reduction in the moon. So that, I don't really understand that, because he says that it was shot at ISO 500, which you wouldn't think there would be a lot of noise with that. But he shot at 1/2000th of a second to ensure that the International Space Station was sharp in every shot. Yep. And then he just went in and Photoshop and masked back in the space station as it moved across the moon.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Would you like this image better if there was just one single space station just subtly on the bottom left and you're like, is that a piece of dirt? Oh my gosh, like that's the space station. Like, would you have liked the simpler version of this more than the time-lapse depiction?
Maybe. I do see what you're saying. The problem is that it's so small that, like you said, it might just look like an error or dirt or something on the print. But I think I like both. I like this. I do wonder why they're not straight across the moon. You know, why isn't it more of a straight line?
I don't know. I mean, is there a wobble in the space station as it moves?
I think, I could be wrong, but I think this goes in front of the moon in like the blink of an eye.
Yeah, so it doesn't even have time, like in the path that you're observing it from, it's so fast that it doesn't even have time to pivot or wobble.
Yeah, that's what I would think. I have something that I want to bring up that's completely unrelated to this entire video.
Well, it wouldn't be
Somebody, why not? Somebody wrote me an email. I don't know if you saw it and you were the one that forwarded it to me, or it was David. But somebody wrote me an email. They wrote it to F-Stoppers and then it got forwarded to me. And they were so, apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry if this is inappropriate. I don't want to offend you, blah, blah, blah. But you are showing signs in your YouTube videos of having hyperthyroidism. And you need to... I have this.
Okay, what is hyperthyroidism?
So I read this email and they're like, you need to go get checked immediately. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking it's like cancer or something, I'm feeling like, what do they see, right? So I look it up and it's like racing heart, difficulty sleeping. It was a bunch of stuff that didn't seem like that big of a deal. So then I go to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, somebody is watching my YouTube videos and says that I look like I have hyperthyroidism. What might be wrong with me? And even ChatGPT is like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how could they possibly see your racing heart over video? How would they know how you're sleeping over video? So I write the person back and I'm like, hey, thank you for letting me know. Please tell me what's wrong with me. Like, what are you seeing? No response. So I don't know what that message was about, but it freaked me out. And I was like, I don't even know what this ailment is. And I'm reading all about it. And then it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But this person in the email is making it seem like it is a huge deal. It's like an emergency. I have to check it out immediately. So if anybody's watching right now and you can see hyperthyroidism in me, let me know what's going on. Lee@fstoppers.com.
Well, I've thought about this before. If we have any followers that have followed us for decades, you can kind of check in whenever you want, kind of like a family member who lives far away and you only see them a few times a year or whatever. But we have such a history on YouTube. I've always wondered, could you go back and like watch a video from 10 years ago and be like, I see some sort of mental decline or some like thing, like you're saying, I don't know how you diagnose hyperthyroidism, but could you see something that like, wow, it looks like there's been a change from 2010 to 2025 and you're able to document something over, I mean, not just for us, but I'm just saying any person that puts themselves out there in this sort of way, over time, will we be able to use AI and maybe upload a bunch of videos from different periods of the same person and see changes in their speech or their aging and actually be able to diagnose people in a way that a doctor never has been able to diagnose somebody?
Absolutely. Yeah, dude. I mean,
it's definitely an interesting idea.
I had a mole, and I'm like, this mole's looking a little weird. I just took a picture of it and sent it to ChatGPT today. And, you know, ChatGPT's like, I'm not a dermatologist, but here's what to consider. And I'm like, all right, I got to consider it. All right, we
still got to pick a winner.
All right, guys, Patrick and I have deliberated, and here are the winners. Third place is going to go to this first lava shot taken by Muhammad Ibrahim. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, but congratulations, you win a free tutorial from fstoppers.com/store. Second place, this image by, oh my gosh, look at this dude's name, Dylan Giancopoulos of the Jumping Penguins. This was one of Patrick's favorites. And first place, and the winner of the entire Roadrunner collection of bags by Polar Pro, we are giving it to Joe Baker. The very first image, his use of generative fill in Photoshop to bring back a blown out dress. It's just a unique way of using generative fill and something that I don't think I've ever considered before. And I feel like the results were great. So congratulations to all of the winners. Please send me, Lee Morris, a private message on Fstoppers for second and third place. Let me know which tutorial you want. I'll get that sent right over. And Joe Baker, send me all of your personal information, your phone number, your address, and we will get this entire box full of, I think, 5 different bags mailed out to you right away.
And of course, if you guys want to enter the next contest, head over to fstoppers.com/contest. You can check that out. The theme, again, is going to be outdoor photography. And we're also running one of the largest sales that we have on our tutorials. You can go to fstoppers.com/store and check out a bunch of different variety of tutorials that we produced over the years, everything from landscape photography to headshots, swimwear, fashion, product shots. We even have a really cool macro photography tutorial. So really enjoyed this one. It's fun doing it remotely. I don't have to look at you directly from the side. And we'll see you guys really soon.
Make sure to join the next contest at fstoppers.com/contest. Once again, the theme is outdoor photography. See you guys.